In addition to Otis, I'm joined by Sam Hardiman with the Commercial Appeal and Susan Adler Thorp, a political consultant. Let's start first to talk about this tragedy in Texas. I don't think we're going to shed any great revelations here in our conversation today. So I want to try and keep this as hyper-local as I can. Otis, I'm going to start with you. Mayor Strickland has a weekly email that he sends out every Friday. And I'm just now seeing this as we record this program. But bottom line is, he says, enough is enough. We must all recognize a fundamental change in our society. The biggest difference today with crime versus years ago, including as recently as 10 years ago, is the proliferation of guns. Fist fighters and pickpockets of yesteryear are now armed with guns. Police officers have told me that it was unusual to arrest someone with a gun 25 years ago, and today it's quite routine. And he goes on to cite some examples of that and offers some solutions he would like to see. But bottom line is, Memphis, we are no strangers to the problem of gun violence, and little seems to be done about it at any level, really. If anything, gun laws are getting more lax.
No question about it, Richard. They are definitely getting more lax. And Mayor Strickland is spot on this. You know, when I was a kid growing up in school, and I grew up down in Mississippi, people would get alarmed when the big high school kids would come out with knives. They would have a knife and they would kind of brandish it a little bit from time to time with a fight. You never saw a gun. It was unheard of for anybody, especially a teenager, to have a gun. So he is spot on about that. We are in a gun culture right now. And it's not just Mayor Strickland that's been saying this. Bill Frist talked about it the other day. The former senator here in Tennessee talked about it the other day. And so we have to do something about this. It is up to our lawmakers and policymakers to do something about it. It is up to the Congress to do something about it. I have no faith that our state legislature is going to do anything substantive, but something has to happen in Congress. I believe there's a little movement on that right now, and we'll just have to wait and see exactly what they do.
But state lawmakers are doing something substantive in the reverse.
In the reverse.
Susan, we've been talking about this. The NRA, they've got it down pat. I mean, they go from state house to state house, basically copy and paste the legislation and just insert the name of a different state, and over and over again, especially across the southern region, they keep passing the same change in laws that makes gun ownership a lot more lax, a lot less restrictive, and you see police chiefs around the country, including the one here in Memphis, bemoaning what effect that's having.
Well, you have to ask yourself, why do the legislatures, especially in Tennessee, make the laws more lax year after year after year? And it's really all about, bottom line, it's politics and getting elected to office. And if the rule, as Otis often calls the red meat of Tennessee, wants to keep their guns no matter what, that's exactly the way that the majority of the state house and the state senate is going to vote. So that's why the laws get more lax and lax all the time. How are you going to? We're trying to fight the NRA. You're trying to fight the very conservative feelings of our rural legislators, and some from even Shelby County. But it's a very, very difficult fight to have, and I don't see the answer right now. I have no hope whatsoever that our state legislature will ever change the laws here, not in my lifetime, and I don't even have really a glimmer of hope that that gun laws will be tightened in Washington either.
Well, in fact, Sam, Governor Lee was quoted in a couple of national publications for his comment when he said, God bless the NRA for helping to get legislation that would remove having to have a concealed carry permit passed in Tennessee, and we're one of a few states who've done that already. So the bond there between that organization and most Republicans in the state legislature is pretty thick right now.
Yeah, and as Susan was saying, and as Otis was saying before that, this is pretty red meat. It's red meat to the base. And so I'm curious, you know, we talk about events and the arc that events have across history, and what happened in Texas this week is all sorts of tragic. You know, it recalls what happened 10 years ago at Sandy Hook. You know, it's the worst school shooting since then. But, you know, as we look out forward, I don't expect that much is going to change with gun laws in Tennessee. What you're going to have is you're going to have very lax gun laws, which allow in a place like Memphis where there's a lot of gun violence, a lot of violence in the community, for there to be proliferation of guns. And then you're going to have local police departments, and Chief C.J. Davis has come out against it, and her predecessor, Mike Rawlings, was saying the same thing. So this is sort of the same thing that we keep talking about in this country, and unfortunately, these tragedies continue to happen.
Yet,
Richard, Richard, could I interject something there? You know, you take a community like Memphis, where, like Sam says, that there's a culture of violence. Well, when guns are so easy to be had, not just buying them over the counter, but when there's so much gun theft in this community. If I recall, 1,500 or more guns last year that were stolen from cars and trucks and even homes wound up on the streets. I mean, when you think of that and you think of the lax laws we have, it emboldens young people and people who have a bent towards violence. It emboldens them to go ahead and use those guns.
Yeah, well, it's got us all jittery, as we saw at White Station High School this week.
It's a cycle that repeats itself.
Yeah, I mentioned the White Station High School incident where a student was charged for bringing a gun to school. There was nothing that happened, thank heavens, but you know, it just shows the impact this is having on the country as a whole when they hear the slightest report that there might be some kind of firearm involved. You saw the rush of parents to the high school, feel for every single one of them, just worried about what this meant or could have meant. Yet, Otis, the irony that strikes me is you and I go to a liquor store. We might just do that tonight, buy a bottle of Chardonnay. They're going to ask me for my ID. I'm a 56-year-old man.
Right.
But that's not going to happen for someone who wants to buy an AR-15.
That's exactly right.
There's something wrong with that.
There's something very wrong with this. But I have to say, and I do have a little bit of glimmer of hope here, Richard, that at least Congress, I believe, is going to do something very modest here. I expect that Congress will agree, a bipartisan agreement on some expanded background check. And then I believe that they will also incentivize states to pass more red flag laws to try to keep guns out of the hands of dangerous people.
Well, let me talk.
That's not going to happen in Tennessee, though.
I mean, I don't know if some Mid-South senators are going to vote for it or be among that bipartisan effort. We want to share really quick before we expire this topic here, an excerpt from an ABC News report where a reporter talked to Senator Roger Wicker about the possibility of any kind of gun safety reform. Here it is.
Any talk of reform involving guns is a non-starter.
The majority of Americans support some type of action when it comes to gun reform. Is your party wrong on this? Are you wrong on this?
We need to look at what solutions have worked and haven't worked.
But if the majority of Americans say background checks,
ma'am, I realize you have a point of view. I've been happy to answer.
it's the point of view of the American people, sir.
So I saw not only Senator Wicker, and I'm sorry you two, because I know you weren't able to hear what he had to say, but not only Senator Wicker blaming the media and trying to turn the tables there, but several Republican senators did that when asked about this. And her point was, it's not my point of view.
Right.
Have you seen the polls?
Exactly.
85%, depending on the question. But a large number of Americans want this change, including a majority of members of the NRA.
Absolutely, but that's why Roger Wicker is an example of why nothing is ever going to get done in the Mid-South states, in Tennessee, Mississippi, and Arkansas, because we have these recalcitrant senators who are just bound and determined to hang on to their guns, just like Charlton Heston said, take them out of my cold, dead hands. It's not going to happen.
Yep. All right, I got to leave it there. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll talk about Memphis police. The new police chief, she's not so new anymore. She's already a year into her first year, and we're going to talk about plans she has for the second year right after this.